everywhere. We're child, we legally everywhere. We looking into every single thing. And today we are looking at documented financial and legal developments connected to the Nolan Wells case. Because as you know, we've been trying to cover that material through the lens of criminal law. And it's something we want to handle delicately, right? We want to be as trauma informed as we can when we talk about this matter, and always keep in mind that what is still a active investigation. This is still currently an active investigation. So we're not starting with conclusions about what all is happening. We're not going to try to use any specific thing as immediate like evidence of this or that, because like I said, I want us to jump to any specific conclusions with regards to this, right? But I seen some interesting developments. I saw some interesting movements, some interesting posturing, and I wanted to go dive into what is happening, right? Y'all know me, I'm gonna go look for them receipts. So like I said, we're not starting with any conclusions. We're not using the fundraising, because I'm about to show y'all that on the screen. And look, I got my receipts ready to look. The image is flipped this time so y'all can see everything. We're not going to use like the lawyers or the public statements as evidence that anybody committed with a specific crime, because what? We don't have that information yet. We don't have that information. We don't have information that would line up with a specific action, right? A specific mentality. So we can't say that. But what we can do is look at the receipts. What we can do is look at the items that we can find in the public and see, you know, what is it telling us about this case? What is it telling us about the story in particular as it relates to criminal law, which is something you guys know that I'm currently studying and preparing for in exams, right? So we're looking at publicly documented movements and asking, where does it fit in that criminal process? Okay. Now, sometimes y'all tell me I like the light on because it helps y'all see some things better. Sometimes y'all tell me it's thrown off the screen. Is this lighting good for y'all right now? Y'all need me to cut it on? I don't see anything in the chat. So if I don't see anything, I'm going to leave it as is, because it allows you to see the back screen a little bit more clearly. If you like, hey, I need to see you a little bit better, then I will put the light on. Okay? Said, who am I talking to? I'm talking to all of you out there on the channel who are enjoying the Legally Everywhere content. Okay? So as we move forward, I want y'all to kind of get a look at how I have this set up, and then I'm going to explain each board, and then we'll move through each board, okay? So this is how we're doing this. This is the board I prepared for our live today. Okay? I was able to pull some primary sources. I told you it's really important to me that we actually pull some primary sources and look at them. What does that tell us? Right? What does it tell us? I was able to look into that fundraising campaign, and actually it was about $1,000 increase since last night when I grabbed the first screenshot. So I will be breaking some of that down. If you're interested, you can certainly take that picture. Okay? Okay, and so hopefully you've been able to see that image. So this is the first time I've actually been able to really kind of focus in on the family and friends information piece. Because once again, I wanted to go see what we can find that they specifically said. I didn't want it to be, oh, we think, it sounds kind of like, I'm feeling, I'm thinking, right? Because sometimes perception is the closest thing we have to reality. I wanted to marinate on this channel and allow us to get some time to see the actual interviews that they did, to actually look at what public statements they actually made, and what actual movements are happening. So that's how this information came about. As you can see, we were able to pull direct sources from like Facebook statements, news reportings from various sources, and even the actual fundraiser itself, right? So I'm going to show you that component. Because once again, when I was introduced to some of this information, initially it was like, oh yeah, somebody's parents put up $50,000 for information and somebody else put a fundraising campaign. And, you know, instantly I was like, ooh, well, that's interesting posture. That's something that looks like we want to dive into that. That's interesting, right? Just when you listen to it without putting any context into it, without kind of doing any digging. So, you know what I said, we don't like to just base things off of headlines. Headlines can be a little deceiving. Sometimes the way you're introduced to information, it could throw you off, right? Because, you know, like I told y'all, that particular statement, let me find y'all an image, had me like this, right? I was sitting and I was thrown off when I saw those statements, and it was kind of all across my social media, like it probably was across yours. And, you know, when you get information like that, you're like, hold on, wait a minute. What are those funds for? Why is that the posturing? Why did the movements go that way, right? So I immediately said, let's actually give it some time. Let's see the overall posturing, because once again, this incident that occurred happened 1 month ago, right? The top of last month. We are at the top of this month. And as far as the movements go, I wanted us to be able to dig in what respectfully and intentionally. So I wanted to actually go look for primary resources. And as you can see, I pulled a high level of resources. And because of the way this is set up, I actually have to give you screenshots. So I can actually show y'all some of the pieces yourself. You can be empowered to go look them up on your own because they're all in public domain, right? I'm not pulling anything that I wasn't supposed to have access to, nothing like that. But the way that we will approach looking at the information might not necessarily be something you see on other channels. So definitely, if you like what you see, you know, follow along, put things in the chat, let me know that you're here so we can have discussion about it, because for me, this is an active discussion that we're having as we are interacting with this material, probably different than we normally interact with the material. Okay, so once again, this is my first time covering the family of the friends and the family members. So once again, we want to handle this in a delicate way, because once again, these people had relationships. This thing has occurred. The relationships are probably being modified, and we're seeing a lot of that real time. We're seeing how people are trying to cope and adapt to this incident that has shaken that community, shaken that system, right? So y'all know me, I'm always going to add the human piece, because this is a lot, and these are young people too. You know, that this is a lot. So we're going to start with July 7th. Okay, so Ashley Cole's statement, I pulled that directly off of Facebook. How did I come across that? Because I was digging all into these receipts. I was all over the actual news clippings, right? And I was like, I don't want to just hear what you said about what that lady said. I want to go read it for myself. So, this is one of the earliest, I would say, documented postures that I see about any of the family or family friends or people who are part of that community specifically, kind of reaching out. So I'm going to give you a snapshot of what she said, and then I'm going to show it to you. So essentially, like, she expressed extreme, like, grief about what was going on. She quoted saying that Warren loved Nolan dearly. Ashley Cole is Warren's mother. Keep in mind, we'll be speaking on Warren quite a bit just based off of some of the receipts that we were able to pull from the grouping of friends. We have some receipts relevant to what his family has been doing, so I'll be covering that, right? So in her quote, it said, Warren loved Nolan dearly. And she talked specifically about support for the Wells family. Very specific language about supporting the family, right? She talked about kind of being shaken up by everything that had happened. Talking about kind of growing up in that community, you know, growing up with even the mother of no, so saying, like, you know, there's a certain connection and tightness, right? So one reportedly cooperated with law enforcement, and the family provided like their accounts of what happened on July 4th, okay? So what I can say we know about that piece is that Ashley Cole directly, publicly made that statement. I'm going to show it to you, but we don't automatically know whether, like, her perspective and positioning on what occurred is what actually occurred, but we do know that's what she publicly stated, right? Because we have to frame this from the criminal law perspective. So that's a piece, right? I'm going to show you that. This is my concise piece of that timeline. Wait to see if it pop up on my screen. You see that? This comes directly from her Facebook. Okay? This piece of the board, where we're starting on July 7th, that comes. Let me pull back a little bit. Make sure y'all can see this on the camera. Can y'all see that? That comes directly from her Facebook. I will what? I will show you all of that as a receipt. So just because a party makes a statement doesn't necessarily mean that that's the gate of finding per se, but what it's a receipt that we got. We have this primary source information, because I feel like the primary source information gives us context on some of these financial movements that we see, some of the posturing that we see. So I wanted to be fair to everything that I saw and pulled as much as I could that appeared to be relevant to what we're looking at. Because honestly, we don't know what's relevant until we probably get to the end point, because you need all the pieces. All the pieces will help you understand the story better. Make sense, y'all? All right. Let's pull Ashley Cole's initial statement. Y'all see, I was up at late last night trying to pull this stuff together for y'all, okay? So I pulled this, and this is her actual Facebook statement, right? Not logged in an account. So this is how it would look if you go, maybe like on a incognito mode, and you were just to go look at what it looks like on Facebook, not set up to anything. This is how it looks, right? So it says Ashley Cole, July 7th, verified Facebook account. It states, let me make sure y'all can see. My apologies with my hand movement. I'm trying to see if I can get like a little stand or something. But our family, along with the community, grieves the loss of Nolan Wells. Our thoughts and prayers are with Nolan's family. Our son, Warren, loved Nolan dearly. Unfortunately, I feel that it is appropriate for our family to dispel some rumors with facts based upon the social media, right? And I will actually show you the extended portion of this, okay? Let's jump over to this piece right here. You can see more of this, right? So unfortunately, I feel that it is appropriate for our family to dispel some rumors with facts based upon the social media attention that is being diverted away from the Wells family and their loss. Okay? Yes, I deactivated my Facebook. Given the very heightened emotional state of social media right now, I fear for the safety of my child and my children. My husband and I have 6 children, and we covet their privacy. We do not believe it is appropriate for our minor children's photographs to be circulated throughout the internet, presenting potential threats to their safety. I graduated high school with Christine Wells Wansley. We are from the same community. I have the utmost respect for her and all of the Wells family. We mourn the loss of Nolan with them. Our prayers, and then you can see that some of the screen is not as accessible. Okay. Some specific posturing, right? So as I kind of gave y'all that overly comprehensive description of what her Facebook post said, we can see that she's saying, hey, I feel connected to that family. I grew up with his mother. My son grew up with, her son's son. We're close with them. We feel like the attention is being diverted away from the family. They are mourning and grieving. So that's a posturing, right? This is on the 7th. And also keep in mind, this is Warren's mother. Warren's father is the one who put the one announcement up for an award. Now, the context on that is very significant, at least from my perspective, which I'm going to move us through, okay? We're going to get more context when we jump into this July to August timeframe, August 1st, okay? Any questions before I move forward? Any questions? Okay. Okay. So kind of keep in mind, initially, Ashley Cole, who is Warren's mother, is kind of saying she feels like attention is being diverted away from Nolan's case. And she's acknowledging that she is grieving with the family. Supportive, right? Talked about community support. Talked about, you know, not just Nolan's relationship with her son, but her relationship with his family, growing up with his mother, a little bit more attachment. Okay? I didn't want that to be detached from the story because I do believe that's a part of the foundation. So I did want to share that, right? So now, then we're moving into the $50,000, the $50,000 reward, right? Because we're going to move into the conversation of Benjamin Hudson, right? Benjamin Hudson, or as we say, Dr. Hudson, however you want to phrase it, right? Dr. Benjamin Hudson is Warren's father, okay? The context, though, we heard about that $50,000 reward, and that's where, you know, we all was like, hold on. What you mean $50,000 and you want information? Wait a minute. The context, it sounds a little different now, right? When we're looking at it from this lens, it sounds a little different than how I was initially introduced to the information, because my pearls were clutched when I first heard it, right? That's why I think it's important to not just lean on the headlines, but it's for us to dig into these, we're digging into these receipts. So, based off what I found, and I found that in People magazine, okay? We're not going to skip this part. I'm coming back to it. But he said that he was matching the amount of money that was being put up by Al Sharpton. He said, we're matching. I want to send an award, right, to match what Al Sharpton put up. Because, quote unquote, we want to know what happened to. Now, I never saw that quote nowhere else. Like when I was digging online, and trust me, y'all know I was in them receipts, I didn't hear anybody put that context to that 50,000. Because I said, not 50 bands. Well, where I'm from, we say 50 bands. But $50,000. Nobody put that context on. Nobody put that packaging so that I could understand the context. Because what? I was baffled, right? As many people were, right? So at the time we saw that Al Sharpton did a $50,000 amount. Hudson went to what? He went to match it. Tyler Perry also put up $50,000. Terry Owens, so Tyler Perry, if you're not familiar, he has a big, very big media production company. He put up $50,000. Terry Owens is an NFL player. He put up $25,000. Okay, so reported reward pool was about $175,000. Okay, there are also some other pieces. Colin Kaepernick paid for the independent autopsy support, and Tyler Perry, his funds were like more so, I think, associated with like the funeral costs and funeral like cost assistance and things like that. So I just wanted to make sure I distinguished where financial supports and pullings were coming from. What I calculated was $175,000 towards the Nolan family's getting an autopsy, independent autopsy done, funeral resources, and just general support and trying to get information about what happened with this case, right? So I'm going to show y'all that right here, okay? Right when I want to show y'all stuff, the screen always want to pop off on me, okay? So we want to know what happened to, right? That's directly from people.com, okay? And that was on July 30th. And that's where I could find one of the first statements with regards to the $50,000 and like an interview, so to speak, that was conducted. Okay? So when I talked about the other information, there were lots of sources, but there was this specific news source that really kind of outlined. Actually, there was the initial one, my apologies, Sun something. I'm gonna show y'all the actual article where I actually pulled the actual interview that was conducted with the father. But yes, that's shown here. Let me show y'all my hand movements here. We can see the different movements with the different people who have been offering to support, you know, bringing about justice in this case. Okay? So now we have some idea of the, what, once again, full picture. Y'all know me, I'm trying to get y'all full picture. Okay. Because, child, we getting into these receipts. I told y'all, I do my best to be fair, because we should be fair. When we look at it, it should, when people are presenting to you information, they should try their best to give you a full picture and not just the piece that seems like it matches the narratives that we have in our mind or the pieces that we want to hold on to. Because at the end of the day, I want to know the whole entire picture. I want everything that's going on, because all of this lays the foundation for, or better yet, helps bring more, let's say, clarity to why Warren's family might have put that up. Right? It gives us more to look at than just saying, well, why'd you do it? It gives us some context, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that that's 100% why. We don't know, right? They didn't give us the information. But I'd much rather base it off what they publicly stated and their public posture than just my own beliefs and thoughts about a situation that I'm looking at, right? And then, like I said, we're going to talk about this fundraising piece in 1 second. I just want to make sure if there's any questions that y'all feel like I'm answering it real time. Okay? Any questions? I'm going to give y'all a moment just to look at that. Okay. So now that you guys have seen that, we can kind of dive in just a little bit more. Okay. So that reported $175,000, right? That included the independent autopsy support, funeral cost assistance, right? Because once again, we are in the thick of investigations. We are so early in this process. But I just want to make sure we distinguish that, because we have a different pool of money that I want people to be looking at. Okay. I want us to, matter of fact, I'm going to show y'all, because we right here. Why not? We are, this is one, I'm going to show you the Sun article as well. But as you see, it says data friend on island. So essentially what we know, that this is Dr. Let me go back to my piece. Hudson, okay? So Warren's dad. He said, we want to know what happened to, right? We want to know what happened to. Part of that same article. Right. We have been completely transparent from the beginning because we want to know what happened to. It was a direct quote. And the context of the funds is the father is offering $50,000 reward for information about the teen's disappearance and death. Okay, that's what people put, right? Now, the part I really want us to look at is the part from, where's Sons at? We getting that. We certainly gonna pull that. Okay, wait 1 second. I do have it. I just want to make sure that we see it. So it's offering $50,000 reward to anyone that with information that leads to an arrest or conviction in connection to the Wells death, right? Sun Herald, rather, and TMZ is who they're saying that they sourced their information from. That is who they are citing Let me put my arm down so I can actually look at this board with y'all. That is people. Y'all can see me look through it. I wonder, did it not upload? Oh, here we are. Here we are. Because I was like, I know they lying. I said as much work as I did to get this together for y'all. This is from Sun. So this is the original source that was stated through all those different articles. Because, you know, I dug in multiple places. So this was supposed to be one of those main primary sources that a lot of the articles are referencing, right? So it says the father of one of the teens who traveled to Horn Island with Nolan Wells is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of anyone responsible for Wells' death. Dr. Benjamin Hudson, whose son Warren was among a group of friends who traveled, said he wants to match, okay? Y'all see that language, right? He wants to match the $50,000 reward initially offered by Reverend Al Sharpton. Can y'all see that? Let me put my hand here. Can y'all see that? Right in here. Very good information for someone, you know, who potentially was wondering, why would you be putting money up, right? Because once again, that sounds like interesting posture when we had no context. So now we got a little bit more context. I said, okay, let's move forward. When I say who put what up, we know that the family was pushing during their original press release for information. Okay? So we see a quote here that says, you don't rush the judgment saying it was racism. Don't rush the judgment saying it was not racism because we don't know, or better yet, we do not know. Al Sharpton said, we want justice. Let the chips fall where they may. Okay, so this is from July 10th during a news conference calling for transparent investigation into the death of Nolan Wells, WLOX. Okay, so that is that piece. And there should be a little bit more. This kind of gives us some of the information about, as I will call them, strategic actors, right? Some people who are lending their support. So we have Ben Crump, the attorney. We had the discussion of an independent autopsy. Results were expected Friday, but he said that there were some delays. It was indicated that former NFL player and a civil rights activist, Colin Kaepernick, contributed funds towards the independent autopsy, right? And the filmmaker and comedian Tyler Perry is helping to pay for funeral costs. Reverend Al Sharpton, filmmaker, said that the filmmaker Spike Lee has also shown some support. Okay, so we're pulling some of this information directly from here. Okay. As you look and see, you also see that very top article talks about some of the issues of concerns and potential packaging around potential civil rights discussions, right? That will be fleshed out in another live, but that was some packaging that we saw relevant to the historical pattern element that we know we tend to follow here on the Legally Everywhere page. Okay, so y'all like, let's get to this other receipt. Y'all probably like, let's get to this receipt, right? What I found interesting, right? What was this, right? Because this is what a lot of us came across. You know, when we were looking at news, just get boom, you got hit with this. And, you know, it catches you off guard. The Neighborhood Talks was one place that had this noted on their page, right? And it was packaged crump for defamation. And very interesting posturing there, right? This was put up just 2 days ago as of yesterday. So we're going to actually look into this because I pulled the actual fundraiser. But this is one of the first things I had kind of came across. And I said, we need to dig into that. We need to dig into that. Yeah, we need to dig into that. I won't jump into the liability portion quite yet. We're going to go here. So this was another piece from that same source that titled it Update, or actually it's another view of that same exact posting, I should say. Can you see? It says, dad of Nolan Wells, best friend raises over $120,000 for legal fund after threatening to sue Ben Crump for defamation. Okay, this is a different friend, right? Okay, because this right here says it was created by Benjamin Hudson. Now, I'm going to show you the other piece that I saw. But once again, that was interesting, right? Ready? Let me show y'all. Right here, I saw this piece. It said Benjamin Hudson right there. So I thought that was interesting. When I show you what we can see, that name doesn't pop up there, right? A law firm actually pops up. Not to say that that's not the case, right? We don't know. But we're going to collect all these receipts and look into it, right? The part that I found interesting when I found the actual fundraising page was that it says stand with Nolan Wells targeted friends. Okay, quote unquote targeted friends. It doesn't say that any of this money goes towards helping the family with this process or anything like that. It didn't say anything about them necessarily saying the money was going towards the funeral arrangements or maybe another investigation or some type of sort. It says specifically stand with Nolan Wells targeted friends. And I'm like, man, because the discussion is that your friend just passed away about a month ago. Interesting posture, right? Interesting posture. We're going to actually read the language that's directly on there. Because y'all know how I am, child. Don't just take it from me. Okay. Better yet, I stand corrected. His name is there, but another element is the Taylor Cox law firm, right? So, stand with Nolan Wells targeted friends. There is a goal of 200. Can y'all see that? There's a goal of 200,000 US dollars raised as of 10/41 yesterday was 161,126 US dollars. Okay, fundraiser created by Benjamin Hudson. Okay, fundraiser funds will be received by Taylor and Cox law firm. Okay, it is now 162,000 plus, and there's constant things rolling in. Okay. Okay. So it's showing that we can see there's some documented movement consistently, right? Consistent is definitely over $1,000 change. But we just had that timestamp, right? So keeping in mind, this is a legal fund, not a Nolan reward fund. Okay. So this is very separate from the $175,000 reward that we saw packaged on the other side. So I just want to have a quick conversation about posture, because that's where my brain immediately is kind of going, right? It's been a month. At the very beginning, it was like you had family statements talking about, grief, support. We here for you. We there. We're part of the community. We grew up together. We support each other. This is affecting our community. We want attention on Nolan and pretty much not other people. Like we care. Then it is a $50,000 reward contribution for anything that could lead to an arrest. Because what we want to know what happened to. So then saying we need legal representation. It's not like I'm saying inherently anybody's right or wrong, right? Because if something happens where you feel like you might need legal representation, then, certainly, I guess, pursue that. Where it gets a little interesting, right, is setting up a fundraiser. Now, here's another piece with the fundraiser. I went to dive in, okay? Look, because I dived in. I sat and tried to read all of what they had up there. Not because I wanted to know who was putting money up. But I was curious, when did this actually become public and when they start taking these transactions? The earliest that I could find yesterday around that 10:30 time frame was a post that occurred 5 days ago. So that would be 6 days ago now. If it started roughly around 6 days ago, the way I've been able to at least see what was publicly accessible appears to show that this campaign started in August. We're in the 7th day of August. The earliest one that I could find as far as a payment made to that fundraiser was 5 days ago yesterday, which means that was 6 days ago. This very beginning of this event that led to all of this, the loss of Nolan's life, or better yet, just the last reported sightings of him last month. And in this time frame that we can observe on that fundraiser, $162,000 fundraised. Even in a month, that's still quite substantial. But to think that that actually occurred in less than 7 days. I saw a couple of donations for $5,000. I seen a few at the $1,000, marker, like 1,000, 25, 100 arrangement. But then I also saw a lot of people saying, hey, every little bit counts. You got a lot that are $5, quite a few that are like 20. And it looked like on average, people are probably giving about $100 per donation. So it really does show that, every little bit counts, because in less than 7 days, it appears, based on what appears to be public, $162,000 for that. The language that was on there, and I'm going to actually pull it so that we can look at the part that falls underneath this section. Let me see if y'all can see that. The part that falls underneath this section of the fundraiser kind of gives us a little bit of background on what the funds are actually for. Now, I want to make sure that we're not saying the question of why are they acting guilty or why do they do this, because I know that conversation has been out there. I think the real question, because I always say we like to ask like good concise questions that give us some decent answers and give us some better understanding. I think the question I'm looking at, why does this publicly documented sequence, like what does this publicly documented sequence kind of like really tell us about how the legal posture surrounding this case is developing, right? Because I just gave y'all that timeline of what I could find. And y'all see, I dug in trying to find as much as I could, to be fair, as everyone I could in this story, right? What does this publicly, right? Because I pulled all the publicly reported stuff. I pulled what they said, right? What does that sequence tell us about the legal posture surrounding this case, right? Because it's very interesting posturing, right? Very. Getting a lawyer isn't like evidence of guilt, because if you feel like you're in a situation that requires legal understanding, knowledge, or representation, I guess, hey, you know, do what you feel is appropriate. Preparing for litigation isn't like evidence of guilt, right? Fundraising isn't inherently evidence of guilt. But at the same time, you know what I'm saying? At the same time, 162,000 raised towards a $200,000 legal fund. That's specifically, if you read it, which I'm gonna go back and read it, it literally says it's legal fund. During an unresolved investigation, we are still in the investigation stage. And 162,000 is like financially substantial, right? And this is what we see public. Because it also talks about, hey, we know you might not feel comfortable donating, but we appreciate your support because, you know, we know that this may have certain looks. So we don't know how many times somebody just slid them a check, you know what I mean? Sent it in the mail, drop it off, drop them a couple dollars. You know what I'm saying? We don't know. Nor do we really need to know. But I think that in itself is significant, right? I think that's significant. So I want to do like just a quick little check-in, right? I'm gonna bring us back to the board. And then, matter of fact, let me see if I can pull this up real quick for y'all. See, right while I'm looking at y'all. Friends, fundraiser. See if it should. So peculiar. I have to go back on my other. Okay, so now I'm looking. There also appears to be a GoFundMe in the memory of the family. We have to check to verify that it actually goes to them. So I'm going to look into that one really quick. Okay, so as I sit looking at you guys right now that I'm pulling away from the screen, I can put this up. Hopefully that helps. Now that I'm looking at you all right now, I can tell you right now, the amount of funds raised is $163,000. Well, $160,046 US dollars. I mean, with transactions happening as we've been on live, right? Just a quick little math setup when we start this live. So since we started this live, we have a 10, 110, 210, 235 that were fundraised while we have been sitting on this live. Okay? So you're like, hey, what does that amount to? Right? Let me pull this here. Okay, so it states on Independence Day weekend of 2026, lives were changed forever when a group of friends lost their best friend, Nolan Wells. No family should have to endure the pain of losing a son, and no family should have to grieve the loss of a brother. But instead of being allowed to mourn, what followed was an unprecedented online campaign of accusations, harassment, threats, and defamation. Since Nolan's death, Warren Hudson, Jax Patalo, Morgan Seymour, and many others have been inundated with death threats, threats of violence, and defamation. They have been falsely and wrongfully blamed by individuals online and in the media of either directly or indirectly having a hand in Nolan's death. Most of them could not even attend their own best friend's funeral. Why? Because race baiters sent a deranged army after them online in the name of, quote, justice, end quote. So according to this GiveSendGo, it says, since the beginning of the investigation, these young men have cooperated with authorities, turned over all the information they had, and provided an overwhelming number of witness accountings for their whereabouts. Some of them even resorted to speaking up publicly to defend themselves against baseless accusations. But unfortunately, it has become clear that the truth doesn't matter. Countless large voices, which they put in all caps, across social media declared them guilty of crimes they could not have committed and have never been charged with. Okay, so once again, they're speaking on the timeline, right, of where they fall in the criminal law perspective, right? So it states their names, faces, and personal information were spread across the internet. So if you've seen online people saying that they were doxxed, that's kind of what they're talking about. That term doxing is what that line is referencing. Which means their names, faces, and personal information were spread across the internet. They and their families have received thousands of hateful messages, death threats, and calls for violence. They have been threatened online and in person countless times. They have been bomb threats. Okay, so there have been bomb threats, packages sent, and credible threats of which arrests have been made. Okay. Parents have fears for their children's safety. Lives have been turned upside down, and some had to go into hiding. This is a typical tactic of Ben Crump and the like. They come to the community like the Gulf Coast under the guise of seeking justice, but it has become painfully clear that their version of justice is stirring division, ruining lives, and then leaving when the money is dried up. We have seen this same pattern time and time again, most recently during the Carmelo Anthony trial. No matter what anyone believes about an ongoing investigation, our legal system exists for a reason. Evidence belongs in the hands of law enforcement and the courts, and not in online mob campaigns fueled by rumors, edited clips, edited audio, speculation, or misinformation. This must stop. This fund was created or is created for the sole purpose of fighting these individuals. Our goal is simple and twofold. Our first goal is to raise money to defend those friends against incoming wrongful death actions filed by attorney Ben Crump and his team. Our second goal is to fund robust legal terms, or better yet, robust legal teams to sue for the litany of slander and libel being spread by not only Crump, but also many social media influencers, news outlets, and local provocateurs who know better. If litigation becomes necessary, this fund will help provide the financial support needed to investigate claims, retain legal counsel, preserve evidence, and hold accountable those who cross the line from expressing opinion into conduct the law may recognize as actionable in any jurisdiction we find them. This is not about silencing legitimate discussion or respectful disagreement. People are free to ask questions and express opinions. This is about drawing a line against defamation, targeted harassment, threats of violence, doxing, intimidation, coordinated campaigns that destroy lives before the facts are known. We know the risks some of you may feel outwardly supporting Warren, Jax, and Morgan, and others. We understand better than anyone, better yet, we understand better than anyone the threats you face. We know that although you know the truth, publicly supporting these men may cause social discomfort or cancellation. Sounds like earlier they said that we don't necessarily know what happened, and but okay, they said we know the truth, and so we'll move back to what this says. So they said they know the risk for some of you may feel outwardly supporting them. We know that although you know the truth, publicly supporting these young men may cause social discomfort or cancellation. But we also know that you're tired. You're tired of the lies. You're tired of the hate and division. You're tired of judgment before all the facts come out. You're tired of seeing these dividers get away with it time and time again and feeling too powerless or voiceless to stop it. But this is it. This is the moment and the cause that can help make a difference. And not a difference just in the boys' lives, but as a message that we are all tired of the grift. Your donation says that enough is enough. Your donation says that the time of exploiting a tragedy under the guise of justice and leaving a community in ruins after squeezing as much money out as possible is over. No one deserves dignity, not this. So although we ask humbly for the support to stop this onslaught of lies and defamation, we also ask with as much passion as we can muster, because we too are tired. We too are heavy laden. But right is right and wrong is wrong. If you believe in truth, due process, and holding people accountable through the rule of law, not through internet mobs, we ask for your support. Thank you. They also have a prayer request button at the bottom, and a place where people can follow for updates if they so wish. Once again, I told you, while we've been on this live, they have received funds, right? So within an hour. So once again, 10, 110, 210, $235 since we have actively been on this live have been sent. It shows, it appears that they're saying maybe 3,013 gifts were given. 2,299 shares occurred for this page, and it looks like 421 prayers were rendered and given out. So of the 163 plus thousand US dollars received, that's under the management of Taylor and Cox law firm, it appears that that was comprised through 3,013 donations. People were praying for the family or for this grouping 421 times. Okay, any questions about that? Because I told you I'm gonna give y'all what they said. Okay, let's see if it look a little bit better with this one. We'll put her up. I'm gonna pull it this way. Maybe y'all can see, maybe y'all can't. I know sometimes y'all tell me y'all can't see the board. So y'all see this piece here, okay? So I just kind of wanted us to be able to look at this bottom row here, because I do believe, this is important. All of this is important, right? And then I'm going to phase us out, right? I just wanted to bring this back to the reason I did the Learn Out Loud criminal law series, right? As I'm learning and navigating this information, I always just thought it was important to, share it with my people. Share with y'all, as we're navigating this, and especially when we have these cases that we see online and we're interacting with the information. I wanted us to interact with it from a lens of, how do criminal defense attorneys look at it? How do prosecutors look at it? How do legal teams look at it? How is the family processing some of this information? Because they are a piece of that puzzle too. A lot of times they are bringing they're putting the push behind the advocacy to say, hey, we want, prosecution to move forward, right? We want to get more information. So we saw in the very beginning, we kind of had the posturing of Nolan's family. Like, hey, we need people to talk about this. Use your platform. Get us some information. Get us some support to get this to that next step, right? We want prosecution to move forward. But we need information so that they know what kind of charge to press, what actual charge would hold. What was the prohibited act? We know that Nolan lost his life. We don't know specifically what prohibited act we can directly connect to that they feel like can legally hold, right? What was the intention? What was the mindset, at that time of this prohibited act, right? They're trying to get the legal elements in place. So they need to have the information, right? You don't want to just get to making certain statements, go through that process, and you don't have everything that you need to do, because you can't do a double jeopardy either. You know what I'm saying? So they have to make sure they have all the legal elements met, and without having the actual charge, the other side who feels like, they would have to defend themselves, right? They can't come up with legal defense because you don't have the charge yet, right? How can you say this, can reduce or remove criminal liability if you don't know what the actual charge is, what you're being charged with, per se? So there's lots of pieces to the puzzle. We also saw notation of them saying like, hey, there is something that was put into the records of some sort by Ben Crump's team, but we have not seen that the prosecution has put forth, right? So there would be the civil piece, and then there would be the criminal piece, right? Okay, so any questions with that part? Any questions with that part? Any thoughts? Y'all know, get in the comments. So as far as that, what they're, I talked about the axe red. We don't have enough information to assign one particular person, you know, or particular charge. Men's red, unknown, causation still under investigation, potential defendants, no conclusion, right? Criminal liability can't be presently determined, right? Those are your legal elements. So one thing, like I said, criminal law teaching me is interesting, is that the interesting facts aren't always something that would be like legally sufficient facts. You know what I'm saying? Like where we are now, this is very interesting, but I can't say that having this information is like, oh, we got them, you know, case solved. Like that's not quite how that works. You know what I'm saying? It's very interesting. Certainly some interesting posture. I have had friends throughout my life, right? I have also had friends who have passed away before their time, and my posture was not parallel with some of the things that I have seen. But that doesn't mean that from that experience that I had, I can automatically say, oh, this person's guilty. We don't have enough information. We don't have enough information. And I think that's one of those things why I'm like, I was so happy to be able to have a mind to say, let me share with you guys real time as I'm learning and navigating, because I do feel like we get to sit as a community and look at things through a different lens, right? We are interacting with the material differently than we traditionally probably would have, because we're looking at it through what would a defense attorney see when they see this, what would a prosecutor see when they're looking at this, what would like that prosecution office team, you know, the person's defense attorney, like how was the family interacting, because that's very different than sometimes how we're interacting with it. Let me see, this light looks like it's throwing y'all off again. Let me see. Is that working? That work? Okay. So let's see. Is there any questions, any comments while I'm sitting here? Okay. Okay. So just kind of keeping in mind when it came to like primary resources, interviews, social media, I tried to distinguish, you know, the different things that we were able to find. So as you see the board, I'll actually put it in the community section so you guys can look at it more later. But at the center of all of these documents, all of these financial developments that I was able to find online, is the fact that like an 18-year-old young man died. Okay. He has passed. And his family is still seeking answers. Okay. And the investigation is what is ongoing. Even though I put together all this work, right? This board doesn't answer like what happened to Nolan, right? It doesn't give us the clarity that we want our heart about this young man, right? It documents what has happened around the case while authorities continue trying to answer that question, right? It documents what I could find about the financial piece, because as you know, when I first saw it, I was just like many other people, like, what is going on? Pearls were clutched. You know, my flabbers were gasted. I didn't like what was presented to me. I said, why? Is that the posturing? I have a little bit more understanding, but just because I have more understanding doesn't mean I have more clarity. I have informed uncertainty, informed discomfort. I have more questions than when I actually started. How most research works, right? I have more questions. And eventually we're going to try to dig into some of those, you know? We're going to try to do that because the family themselves, I actually found a video of the mother Nolan's mother, kind of just saying she wanted to thank people for just making sure that attention was brought to the case and his name is still being vocalized and people are asking for support. People are still asking for transparency. Make sure that justice is served. I always say I really hope that Lady Justice, you know what I mean? Lady Liberty, right? I hope she is not blind to this circumstances and numerous circumstances that are happening in the community, right? There are some other cases that are out there that give us pause, right? But there were some pieces to this story that really kind of made you go, You know, I always said, you don't have to be tasteful, but certain things should never come across as tasteless. Like, you know what I mean? This particular case has a lot of points that are uncomfortable to the spirit, right? They as far as trying to digest the information, it's not digesting correctly, right? Your stomach is a little off put. You feel a little upset, a little, by some of the things that we have come across. We won't be able to solve this based off of this information that I pulled or the document that I was able to pull a couple days before, right? Or just even me trying to throw out all the timelines from all the publicly accessible information. That's not something we can do at this point because we're in active stages of investigation. We want to allow them to do what they're going to do. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to look and dive in because we've had a lot of independent, let's say strategic actors come out, like the audio engineer who was able to use their subject matter expertise to bring attention to an area in the case that will likely have a lot more attention moving forward. It also appears that in that fundraiser, it mentioned that there was some things with regard to audio. So that is already something we can hear what that team is already looking at, okay? That legal team. Right? So as I always say, interesting if nothing else. And y'all know I'm going to get y'all the receipts whenever I can find them because y'all my people. And as I'm processing this information saying, hey, what is going on? Like what were they possibly thinking when they did that? What were they trying to angle or posture? What is their overall posture? It was interesting, right? We saw Nolan's mother's Facebook, not Nolan, my apologies, Warren's mother's Facebook statements, and then we saw some things that the father said, and then we saw the fundraiser and all the pieces. It's just very interesting. We kind of got to look at it from a different perspective than we probably had been before. Doesn't necessarily mean it's more comfortable to look at. It doesn't say that any of this is telling someone is innocent or guilty. That's not what we're going to do here. What we're going to do is try to understand what we're looking at. We're going to try to ask the right questions. Or better yet, we're going to try to ask better questions, not the right questions, because the right assumes we know exactly what direction we're going in. We want to ask better questions so that we can get to better outcomes. My hope is at the end of this journey, there's justice. But we're so early in the process, we don't know. My heart and prayers go out to all the families impacted. There's a large community of people who feel, affected by this. This young man lost his life. All this rhetoric and all these things going on. Death threats, it appears to happen on both sides of the conversation. I'm sure that the legal teams and things of that nature are probably getting some different kinds of contact as well. The audio engineer said she was getting threats. Very unfortunate. Even some smaller creators said that they were getting unnecessary, onslaught of like social things, right? Unfortunate. Really, really unfortunate. I saw a clip from Nolan's mother. She said she should be getting updates from her son who was supposed to be on a college campus. But she's not getting them because he's not here. At the end of the day, a young man lost his life. And we still don't have answers. I hope that justice is at the end of this journey. So, that's where I'm at. I saw something in the chat. I'm going to address some things I see in the chat, and then I will press forward. So it says, And thank you for your engagement in the chat. It said ask the right questions. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna ask the right questions. Try. I think you're referencing my accent. X A S K. We want to ask the right questions. That's funny though. I think it just depends on where you're from. We all kind of slightly have accents wherever you're from. But yes, I'm so glad that you were able to engage with the live. And every time that you all put comments in the live, you're allowing YouTube to know that you're interacting and you find this content interesting, and it sends it out to more people who will actually enjoy the content. So I thank you so much for being engaged. I hope you continue to be a part of my Legally Everywhere community. I appreciate you so much for your engagement and being on this live and being a part of that community. Because once again, every time that you jump on my live, you are part of my views. Every time that you jump into my comments and you make any statement, you are contributing to the discussion and discussions that are happening in numerous places all over the world on the YouTube channel. So thank you so much. I also wanted to state thank you for adding that extra comment, because what I found out this morning that we have 150 subscribers. And that just does my heart so good, because 150 people committed to saying, hey, I want to stay abreast of the information that you put on your channel and the way that you present your information. That is so warming to my heart. What I also find beautiful is I also found out that I have 6,000 unique viewers that follow my content and like what I put on my channel, or at least consistently come to consume what I put on my channel. So once again, I want to thank all of you who come in and put comments, right? Because I read them all and I engage with them all. I engage with them all at different levels. Sometimes I'll see a comment and I'll come back and I have to do some research and I'll come back and bring it to you, like I've kind of done the last couple lives. And sometimes I just respond directly if it's something we can address at present moment. If it's not, I'll let you know. We're going to put a pin in it and come back, because I feel like, once again, we're having conversation and dialogue together. We're doing this together. We're learning together, and you're part of the community. So I'm so excited. Thank you for that opportunity once again, with that lovely feedback that you put in there to remind me to say thank you all for being a part of my community. We are 150 people strong as far as subscribers and as far as just overall community. Because I've done it too before. Like, you just be watching people content and you forget, like, oh, let me go subscribe. It's 6,000 people who are, let's say, perusing through and consuming and digesting the content that we have here. Thank you so much, because what we legally everywhere with child, what we legally everywhere, looking into everything. Thank you so much for being a part of this community, and I'll see you in the next video. You have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Stay informed.